Greetings, netizens of YouTube. This is the first in a series about migration, with reference to the current refugee and migrant crisis, which has seen the greatest mass movement of people since the Second World War. By the time you see this video, thousands more will have entered mainland Europe. Before I report from a country on the front line in Europe, and then create a video examining potential policy measures that could be implemented to reduce such large-scale migration, I am keen to provide context. Do not be under the illusion that this issue can be resolved by patrolling borders or building fences. It has come to my attention that the issue of migration has become a matter of pressing concern, and not just in the sense of a political hot potato. This has already become a matter of human tragedy, even if many in Western countries still seem unaware of what is going on. This is a story that is only growing. Due to history and geographical position, the United Kingdom has always had a more guarded but contradictory stance towards migration. Larger scale migration to the UK over the past century was largely due to unfilled jobs and economic expansion. While the government welcomed in migrants from the West Indies to work for London Transport in the 1960s, for example, many were not prepared for the racism they faced. On the other hand, modern Britain is a tolerant society, and migration in large UK cities has become not only accepted but welcomed. This is perhaps best seen by the adoption of non-British cultures into the fabric of what it means to be British. However, there is the history of the UK as a modern state that has never been invaded to consider, combined with the geographical fact that the UK is an island and the mentality this can foster. In recent years, the issue of migration is barely out of the headlines. Upon entry to the European Union, thousands of Poles came to work in the UK, although many have since returned. Policymakers have repeatedly underestimated the numbers of migrants that sought to live in the UK. The issue has become politically charged. This is the context in which the European migrant crisis finds itself. To make matters worse, many of the migrants are brown-skinned Muslim men who, in the eyes of the media and among sections of the public, fit the profile of a terrorist or extremist. The frame of debate is sometimes little more than, are they coming here to bomb us, potentially convert us, or to sponge from social benefits? Or perhaps all three? A briefing update was released on the 20th of August called UK Public Attitudes Towards Immigration by the Migration Observatory at the University of Oxford. Anybody wanting a comprehensive and long-term overview of public attitudes in the UK towards migration should read this. According to monthly opinion polls from Ipsos respondents, race relations and immigration is the most important issue. Respondents are not given topics to choose from, and as you can see, race relations and immigration are considered more important than the National Health Service, the economy, and education. 3/4 of the public favours reducing immigration. To provide a European comparison, you can see the United Kingdom sits around the average of concern for EU immigration, and we can see that non-EU immigration is more unpopular than EU immigration. However, in a separate survey, the UK leads the EU countries surveyed in its belief that there are too many immigrants and the belief that immigration is a problem rather than an opportunity. In May of 2015, the findings of Show Racism the Red Card, a leading anti-racist charity survey, was published. This was a survey of attitudes of almost 6,000 school pupils aged between 10 and 16 throughout England between 2012 and 2014. In response to the statement, Muslims are taking over England, 35% said they agreed or partly agreed. Migration to the UK is out of control, not being properly managed, 49% agreed or agreed strongly. The average estimate of the percentage of the British population who are Muslim was 36%. The 2011 census date indicates that the percentage of Muslim people living in the UK is less than 5%. 60% of respondents believed that it was true that asylum seekers and immigrants are stealing our jobs. When asked about the newspapers young people see at home, the results indicate that certain tabloid newspapers are much more common than other mid-markets and broadsheet publications. 52% of the young people surveyed mainly see the Sun newspaper in their home, 29% see the Daily Mail, and 22% see the Mirror. However, at least 75% of respondents recognise that newspapers can contribute to racism, and a majority recognised racism as bad. The study also failed to pose questions which could identify the influence of internet media in potentially shaping the opinions of young people. Despite that, the study provides an important indicator to attitudes of young people and, by extension, their parents. 1 month earlier, the shock hack Sun columnist Katie Hopkins wrote an article headlined "Rescue Boats, I'd use gunships to stop migrants." In the piece, she described migrants as cockroaches and stated her disdain for the corpses of hundreds of migrants that were floating in the ocean off the coast of Italy following a tragedy. This caused an outcry that culminated in UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein, condemning the piece as being reminiscent of Nazi propaganda. Questions were again raised about journalist ethics and standards, with no conclusion. In July 2015, Prime Minister David Cameron himself described migrants as a swarm of people that want to come to the UK because of jobs. His comments were swiftly condemned by refugee charities for dehumanisation. It would be pointless to reel off dozens of cases of media delirium and irresponsible or incendiary statements from politicians. Clearly, the government and media are impacting public attitudes, although no doubt the former two would claim that they are reflecting public attitudes rather than shaping them. Suffice to say, migrants, provided they don't die in transit, face an unhappy set of circumstances, meaning they are less likely to be welcomed than any group since the West Indians of the 1960s. Until now, politicians have shown themselves to be utterly incapable of adopting a strategy to deal with this issue. The media, with a minority of exceptions, have stoked fear, cultivated ignorance, perpetuated stereotypes, and encouraged racism. They have also failed miserably to provide the public with reasoned debate. To be sure, the right-wing media has been the worst offender, but the refusal of some on the left to discuss the issue in any other terms than merely to rebut the right's arguments does not help. I will address this in another video. What is needed is an open and honest discussion of the issues which cause people to leave their lives behind in the first place. There is no single answer, but there is a way to reduce and to mitigate the scale of such migration before the fact that doesn't involve sending in the army or hoping that innocent people die in the ocean.